I'm joined by Stanislav and Vladimir from zkFold, and they have a really interesting catalyst proposal here in Fund 12, all around the SIP30 compatible smart contract wallet backend for Cardano. I know that's a little bit of a mouthful, but we're going to dig into this one and find out exactly what it is. But first off, gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, Peter, for inviting us.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so what exactly is this proposal? What does this all mean, and what was the inspiration behind it?
So to answer your question, we need to come back to the question of adoption. So as you know, the adoption of the blockchain technology is the key for many dApps to be successful, right? And we want to see more new users on Cardano, but most of the time we forget about the customer experience. So every one of us was in this situation in the past, right? So actually, what does a new customer see? So first of all, this person should learn tons of new jargon, terms like private keys, seed phrase, fees. They're not familiar for most of the people, right? And then let's assume that a person was finally convinced to start exploring wallets, right? Immediately, he is faced with an unfamiliar process to keep the seed phrase secure and with the fear of losing it. So once you're able to overcome the first barrier, you are ready to make your first transaction. So you start transferring one token to your friend, and the cost is super expensive. And then finally, surprise, surprise, you can't move one token because you don't have enough money to pay for a fee. So as you can see, the task of onboarding a new, we can say, Web2 user is very complicated, right? And that's why we want to make wallets' life much easier and help them to attract a massive number of new users. So that's the idea behind our smart contract wallet backend proposal. Users can log in with their existing Google or LinkedIn account, and by applying zero-knowledge technology, we make their transactions cheaper. And even we can provide an option to sponsor transactions. So also users will be able to pay a fee with any token.
That sounds super useful. Pay a fee in any token. That's one thing I like straight away about this proposal. And the logging in with a Google account, that just makes things so much easier. And you're right, that would bring adoption to a lot of these wallets and make things a lot easier, especially for those Web2 users that are just used to that kind of experience, logging in with their email account, whatever it is, and then being onboarded into the ecosystem. Can we talk a little bit about some of these features, such as that Web2 credential authorization, and then go into those fees and being able to pay in any token? That sounds super interesting. How does this all work?
I would like to add one point about Web2 login. So we're not going to replace the seed phrase with Web2 login, right? We are adding an additional option to the wallets so users can choose. So when you start using a wallet, you have two options. Either you can use a seed phrase and then you are a very intermediate Web3 user, or you still want to start with Web2 login. Then you can discover all the options about the Web3 interfaces, wallets, and so on. And then it's up to you as a user to decide whether you would like to continue with Web2 login or you would like to switch to a new form of Web3 login, which means you have to keep your seed phrase secure.
So how does that all actually work then? What goes on in the background to make that Web2 experience work within what you guys are building?
Yeah, sure. So technically, there are on Cardano, there are two types of addresses. There are so-called public key addresses, which are normally used for wallets. And there are also script addresses, which basically when you use some kind of app or Bluetooth smart contract, that's where you send your money to. And for this smart contract wallet, we will use these script addresses, which allow us to place additional spending conditions on the available funds to the user, right? So besides like having providing a signature for this transaction, we could have a condition that you have to be logged into your Google account. So you have to have like an API token that corresponds to that login. So this option allows us to bypass the seed phrase requirement, so that like when you use these script addresses, you don't need to sign the transaction with your private key, but instead this will be done through some kind of backend. And from the user perspective, they could just log in with their Web2 credentials. Then, basically all features are based on this idea of script addresses.
Okay, so as the user interacts with a script address and there's no private key at all, no signing, no private key, I'm just trying to imagine how that works, because I've never experienced anything like that without needing to sign to transfer assets.
Yeah, so the actual transaction will be signed on the backend. So it could be like a server that is run by the wallet themselves, or by a particular dApp. For example, they could have a backend that would sign the transaction. Yeah, every transaction in Cardano has to be signed by someone. This is just a requirement for execution of Pluto script, because you need to provide collateral in the transaction. So basically we are shifting this responsibility from the user to some sort of backend, either a dApp or the wallets themselves. And this is also how sponsored transactions can work, and bable fees as well, because basically a wallet or a dApp may want to attract new users. They may want to as a sponsored transaction, or for example, they may want to send some token as a compensation for like active participation in some kind of activity, or because of you using a certain dApp or a certain function.
Yeah. So kind of like an airdrop or a competition, and you interact with the dApp and you get rewards in the process.
Yeah.
So that sounds quite flexible and quite good. And we'll get more into the sponsored transactions and bable fees in a moment. I'll circle back to that one. What really interests me there in the whole the dApp needing to sign it and control the funds through the script is the security side of this. So the dApps, the wallets, I should say, would really need to ensure that whole setup is as secure as possible. How are you guys helping with this and ensuring that this is a really secure process for anyone using that Web2 experience?
Yeah, sure. Obviously, like seed phrases were invented for a reason. They are like a gold standard of security for your Web3 experience. And so, in that sense, like obviously using your Web2 credentials is maybe not as secure as if you store your like seed phrase completely safely in a, basically if you follow all the security guidelines, then of course nothing can beat it. But for new users, I think to double into crypto, maybe it's okay to have your typical Web2 security. That would be like enough to start, but then maybe when you are becoming serious, maybe you should transition to Web3 credentials. In terms of dApps and wallets, so I could say that basically when we were developing Ncoins, we battle tested this approach. So we have like a network of decentralized relays. They are all independent of each other, and basically what they do, they process transaction. If they see that like this transaction is profitable, they can process it, and they like the backend does not need to store a lot of money, just a little bit to cover the fees, the collateral. But from the perspective of the backend, it's not. It's not like running a stake pool. You don't need to pledge a big sum of some token, right? From the user perspective, so this proposal, it's all open source, so there is no such possibility that, for example, a DApp becomes inaccessible or a wallet becomes inaccessible and user funds are get stuck. And this is not possible because we are open sourcing everything, and like you could always run your own backend. You could always process your own transactions.
Okay, that's good to hear. It's and probably so anyone that's listening into this should realize, as a new user that coming into the ecosystem, to start looking into storing your own seed phrase after being onboarded with this type of Web2 experience. I guess maybe the wallets could introduce also like a threshold, like maybe if you have over 20,000 ADA in your wallet, it will prompt the user, hey, it might be a good idea to learn about seed phrases and how to store and manage them correctly. So lots of interesting use cases and user journeys that may come out of this. It's a good approach. I do like it. So hopefully the wallets out there do look into this and start implementing a couple of things from it. Now, you also mentioned a little bit earlier those sponsored transactions and Babel fees. Quickly, could you explain Babel fees for those that don't know about them and how they work, and what the user experience around that would be like? I'm imagining from a little bit from what you've been explaining already, but I'd like to get a little bit more explanation around it.
Yeah, so obviously on Cardano, all fees must be eventually paid in ADA. This is the primary asset of Cardano blockchain. But an interesting feature that was proposed some time ago by IOG is called bable fees, and the idea is that a user could pay the fees in any currency as long as there is a counterparty that wants to accept this currency as payment and in return pay in ADA the fees to the network, right? So basically one way to do it would be at the level of SPOs. So SPOs, inside Cardano node, have a certain feature of I could accept this token and this token and this token, and I would exchange them at this rate and at that rate. But we could also do this at the wallet level, and it's basically the same idea. As long as the backend is willing to accept a particular kind of token, then you could pay fees in that token. So probably this will work for like liquid tokens that you can easily exchange on a DEX. So the backends can trade for the necessary quantity of a particular token, and then exchange them back to ADA and pay fees for the transaction in ADA, then get back these tokens from the user. So it works something like this.
Cool, excellent. So thank you for that explanation. And I would love to see that implemented on the wallet level. It just kind of makes sense to have that implemented there, especially if a lot of onboarding meetups that I go to these days, we send out SNEC Hosky to these users, and then they have to fund ADA into their wallet, and it's a bit more of a process, but it onboards them. But having that little bit of SNEC in their wallet, they can go to an exchange and exchange it directly for ADA in a decentralized way, and they don't need to use a centralized exchange or anything like that. So I really love to see that implemented in. But this sounds overly complicated. This is way over my pay grade to develop anything like this. What type of technical challenges are you guys coming up with? Is the tech stack all there ready for you guys to develop something like this, or is there any dependencies? What kind of technical challenges are you facing to deliver this?
Yeah, so we are working hard on our previous proposal called zkFold Symbolic. It's a programming language for smart contracts, and we plan to base the smart contract wallet on this technology, on this language. And it's still a few months until the voting happens and the results gets published. So we have some time to finalize everything. And we are progressing quite nicely on that proposal. We are almost done with milestone 3. So I think we will be on time. So that's the main dependency. And after we finish with that proposal, of course, our goal is to attract people to using zkFold Symbolic. So we want to show them what cool things you can build with this language. And it's basically building a wallet backend is a great way to do it.
And I'll put links and references to zkFold Symbolic. So if anyone wants to learn a little bit more about that, they can do so in the show notes down below. Now, I'm assuming you've spoken to wallet developers out there and talked about the possible integration with this. What does that conversation look like?
So initially, we tried to understand what stops Web2 users to come to Web3. We did a certain research and we came back with those 3 ideas. So from our point of view, these 3 main issues stopping them to onboard to Web3. And we decided to do our homework and to verify these ideas with Cardano wallets. So basically, we talked to some of them. We were proactive to come back to them, asking those questions, and the feedback was really, really very positive. I would say 90% of the wallets, they said, yes, that's a super cool features. We want to see it in our wallets. And I think that's a good result. So we are coming back to Cardano community with a proposal which has some background and support from wallets.
Have you seen this type of feature in other ecosystems broader outside of Cardano? And implementing it, would we see a broader adoption and attraction towards the Cardano ecosystem?
Yeah, there are similar solutions on the market for sure. I don't remember the exact name of them. And unfortunately, I don't have statistic because it's super difficult to see the figures, how many users you managed to onboard without this option or with this option. But using the internet, and then when we did some research, it looks like that these kind of services are super important and super popular. So it makes me think that, yes, that's something the market needs at the moment.
I'll try and dig up some links as well. So if anyone's interested in seeing the other ecosystems and how they do it, I'll find a couple of wallets that do this type of Web2 experience, onboarding experience, and put them in show notes as well. So we can have a little bit of comparison and see where they are and where some of the Cardano wallets can catch up in regards to that type of experience. Now, guys, thank you so much for joining me on this episode and talking through this crazy proposal, really, of onboarding users to the Web3 ecosystem of Cardano. I absolutely love what's happening here. Do we have any final words for the Cardano community that are listening in?
So currently we are in review phase of Project Catalyst, and we would like to hear more comments and the view of the Cardano community. So we could answer those questions, but even though I believe that's a super cool proposal for the Cardano ecosystem in general.
Awesome, guys. Again, thank you for joining me on the podcast, and I look forward to seeing whatever you guys are developing in the Cardano ecosystem, and we'll speak again soon.
Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Pete.